Norma. And is Norma pleased if she's been named after somebody?
I'm sure she is. She looks very sparkling.
Well, let's move on. Today marks 50 years since one of the most notorious crimes in British history, the Great Train Robbery. The night mail train from Glasgow to London was stopped by a gang of thieves and millions of pounds stolen.
Well, on board were two men from Crewe, Jack Mills, the driver, and his assistant Dave Whitby. This afternoon, their families were at a service at Crewe station to remember them, and that's where we can join our reporter Becky Meehan this evening. Becky.
That's right. I was at the event a little bit early this afternoon, right here at Crewe Station, and we heard about an event that's often remembered as an audacious heist. But for the families of the two train drivers that you just mentioned that were assaulted by the Great Train Robbers, today was a day for remembrance. The Great Train Robbery. 50 years ago, two Crewe railwaymen driving the mail train to London were lured into a trap.
I was under the impression they were company's linesmen, and I had a signal failure.
What happened next?
My mate got down to telephone, which is the usual custom, and he said these telephone wires have been cut. I didn't realise it was a trap even then.
Today, the families gathered at the same room at Crewe train station where Jack Mills and David Whitby clocked on to remember the price they paid.
50 years ago today, the railway world was shocked.
Jack and David were badly beaten by the gang. Jack died 6 years later after a string of illnesses, and David died of a heart attack, aged just 34.
The trauma, it did affect him. I know my eldest brother, he just came down my house one morning and said, David's dead. And that was it. And I was in tears, and it was just horrible.
12 of the Great Train Robbers did indeed go to jail, but the families of Jack and David believe they have suffered, while the criminals have been glamorised.
You're seeing them on TV getting paid for doing films, and they're benefiting by their crime, aren't they? And Jack Mills and David were both forgotten about. They were never ever mentioned.
Ronnie Biggs famously escaped from jail and spent 36 years on the run. The families of the victims are still living with the after effects of a violent crime. Well, there were calls in that service today for some kind of permanent memorial to these two men who were injured in the line of duty. And after the event, when I was chatting to the station manager, she told me that, in fact, there are plans in the offing to make that happen when the new station entrance opens up here next year. So it looks like that could be happening in the next few months. Today, though, was very much a day of remembrance for these two families.
Yes,
back to you.
Becky, thanks very much indeed. Becky Meehan there at Crewe Station.
Next, the Great Train Robbery remains one of the most notorious robberies in British criminal history. In 1963, a gang stormed a Royal Mail train and got away with £2.6 million, around £46 million in today's money.
But there was a human cost too, and today, two men from Crewe who died after being attacked in the robbery were remembered at a special service at the town's railway station. A permanent memorial to the men at the station is planned for the future. Our correspondent Rachel Townsend has this report.
The Great Train Robbery remains the most notorious robbery in British criminal history. In 1963, a gang of 15 stormed a Royal Mail train travelling from Glasgow to London. The men got away with £2.6 million, around £46 million in today's money. But there was a human cost too, and today the two men from Crewe who died after being attacked during the robbery were remembered at a special service here at the town's railway station.
They were our mates, our men, our friends, our brothers.
It was held in the same room where the two men clocked on for duty 50 years ago.
Lord, we remember with shock and anger to find that our brothers had been attacked.
Jack Mills was the train driver hit over the head with an axe handle after refusing to drive the train for the robbers. His family say he never recovered from the assault and died 8 years later. A second crew member, David Whitby, was thrown down an embankment by the gang. He later died from a heart attack. Jack's grandchildren were at today's service, sitting alongside David's sister Nancy.
We just didn't know what was happening because David didn't come home because they'd kept him in London for questions and the police were questioning him, and it was just horrible waiting for him.
And what did he say about the robbery?
He didn't really say much. He didn't like to talk about it.
I started on the railway just 15 years after the actual robbery, and there was a lot of hurt, especially where we are now, and there still is.
There is a feeling that the notoriety of the villains, who included Ronnie Biggs and leader Bruce Reynolds, overshadowed their victims. But today was about remembering them. Rachel Townsend, Granada reports, Crewe.